the first-degree murder of a health insurance CEO because he's a white male.
This is why I don't like him at the end.
Matt,
come on.
Matt,
This is why he's full of shit.
I thought it was the crazy leftists who want to make everything about race. Now it's this guy.
Is he at the Daily
Matt,
Wire?
oh, I'd love to.
He's at the Daily Wire, right? Daily
Matt
Wire?
does.
Yeah.
Matt, I agree with when he's right, he's right. When he's wrong, he's wrong. This is kind of pathetic.
First of all, the other things that he did that are good that I do like, okay?
Yeah.
Didn't watch him, but I agree with him doing them, okay? However, he's smart enough to know this is a scumbag defense of an insurance CEO that he knows is wrong. There's no way he's dumb enough to think it's because it's a white male.
Let me finish.
So that means
that's not why this guy got shot. And that's not why people are celebrating.
You think you don't know that?
If he was the CEO of the same company but was a black woman, you would not be seeing any of the gloating and celebration. I hope everyone understands this basic point.
Oh, I'm sure they would allow a black woman into their crime scheme.
Those crazy leftists making everything about race. Oh, when you point the finger, huh?
Yo, Daily Wire, an AIPAC puppet organization that spies on its own employees. Remember, they fired Candace Owen for saying Christ and tried to say it was a hate crime. And Clavin, that moron, was like, well, it's like burning a cross. But they are compromised.
Here's what I will say this about Matt Walsh. I'll say this to him. Matt, how are you sure that the CEO did not identify as a black woman?
Oh.
Now we'll never know. We'll never know. Here, it gets worse.
Oh, what a surprise. What a surprise. Did you draw eyebrows?
Hey, does Groucho Marx know you stole his eyebrows?
That's not something you did to the video? That's his eyebrows?
No, that's his eyebrows.
Was he using Matt's beard dye on his eyebrows?
Look, he's got 7.2 million subscribers. He only got 154,000 views on that.
Yeah, what a surprise.
The first comment, I just realized your entire business model requires that us normal folk hate each other.
Yeah, right.
Well said. Because there he was, the evil revolutionary left cheers murder. You're really turning this into that? You don't think there were right wing? There was no right wing. What are you guys? So they're doing that thing that they claim that lefties do. They're making everything a left-right issue. Everything I don't like is left, and it's about white males. It's nothing to do.
Hey, Ben, hey, war sucks. You know, as the great the guy from Israel that I watched said, hey, war sucks. People die in it, you know? Hey, it's unfortunate, but war, you know, what are you going to do? Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Ben. Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
What about Dresden? Hey, people cheer murders elsewhere besides just in Gaza.
Yeah.
Like the way you do, Ben.
He's a scumbag rich kid that is part of a real dark, evil thing. And that's why they're saying these disingenuous arguments. And that's why I'm sure it gets on your nerves when we had that guy screaming about, well, I don't know why you're doing a Trump, like accusing you of being right wing, because I know they associate with this idiot. I hate these people.
Well, I don't.
Listen, if you're for business reasons saying this disingenuous shit, I really can't stand it.
Do you think he really thinks like this? Do you think he thinks these are leftists that are ups?
No, he knows they're not. This is on purpose. It's not like an honest mistake. It's on purpose. He's one of those old school. He's like a neocon. This guy. So neocons are the most slithering, evil pieces of shit on the planet.
So you're
followed away by neoliberals.
You're blaming contempt for the insurance industry on the left?
Yeah. Hey, are you going to criticize Israel's socialist medicine, you dipshit?
This is like that Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, when he blamed the immigration crisis on Brexit, instead of the elites trying to destroy the structure from within.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro's a scumbag. He's always been a scumbag.
The evil revolutionary left, and then it's not just the left, Ben. Yeah. 443 likes, right in 3 hours. That was in 3 hours. 443 likes, not just the left. So this guy looks like a right-winger.
You can actually see from who's talking about this, who's like paid off by who, I think.
All these, one after another, they're all saying this is clearly not a left issue. To claim it's just the American left that has been cheering this on social media is delusional. Sorry, Ben Shapiro, it's not just every comment.
Yeah, of course.
There's more. There's even more. I don't know why you're trying to keep pushing this as a left issue. It's clearly across the board.
I know why. I think I know why.
Conservatives and liberals find rare agreement amid insurance CEO killing.
Well,
this was something that brought people together, and Ben Shapiro is still trying to divide people.
I don't care.
And Matt Walsh, I like that movie he did a lot. This is ridiculous. He's
working for a company where he better toe the line, or he gets like Candace Owens found out. I think Brett Cooper found out because they were replacing her. I guess she's not going to be Snow White.
That's
who looks
just
exactly
silly.
Like Ben Shapiro.
It's
a lie. It's on purpose. He probably got a directive from the company. What we're going to say about this?
I don't know, but I think he just got caught up.
He works at Daily Wire. You already know how it works at Daily Wire. We already know how it works. They send people to spy on your speaking engagements when you leave the company. They do Harvey Weinstein Black Cube kind of shit.
Well, let me look at this headline. Conservatives and liberals find rare agreement amid insurance CEO. You know the country's going well when the only thing the left and the right can agree on is murder.
You know that's scaring the shit out of all of these people.
Yes.
That's alarming to see people coming together on this. And I'm sure a bunch of people that work at these things either don't think about how bad it is because that's how they make their money, which is the American way. But the people at the top know 100%, including whoever hired this MK Ultra to kill that guy to cover up their pump and dump. Because he got killed not because of the health insurance. No one's ever going to do anything about that. He got killed because he was going to testify against his fellow gangsters. That's the only reason he died. So people could celebrate the fake reason that he died if they want. I don't see any harm in it. What I don't get is why they're trying to sell this as I get it. What am I saying? Of course I get why they're doing it. It's obvious.
There's been a lot of discourse, a lot of discussion, a lot of think pieces, a lot of debate about the killing of the CEO of Universal Healthcare, which is the largest health insurance company in the country. And we covered that ourselves in the context of examining why people hate the health insurance industry, not just people on the left, people across the political spectrum. I talked about what we confronted personally from a health insurance company in Brazil that was owned by Universal Healthcare that operates very similarly. The way they deny coverage to you at your most difficult time after you pay premiums forever, they'll concoct ways to deny you the opportunity to visit doctors. It's an industry that people despise. And so the fact that someone clearly targeted the CEO produced all over the political spectrum a lot of, I wouldn't say celebration of the fact that the CEO himself died, but a lot of unleashed rage at this industry that impeded people from being particularly empathetic with the victim, and in some cases quite supportive of the killer, whose identity at the time we did this segment was not known. Since then, as you've undoubtedly heard, the police apprehended someone that they claim is the suspect, or the killer. He is the suspect. They claim is the killer. His name is Luigi Mangione, who's 26 years old. And his lawyer says he intends to plead guilty, says he hasn't seen any forensic evidence linking him to the crime. So we don't know if he is the killer, in fact, but the manifesto that he had with him was leaked, and the independent journalist Clint Klippenstein obtained a copy of it. It was very much exactly what one might expect, namely that I did this because I hate the health insurance industry. There was a document, an online trail, long online trail, written by Luigi Mangione, including having commented on or reviewed the Unabomber's manifesto, where the Unabomber justified why he sent mail bombs to people, killed innocent people. And the manifesto was actually one of the most interesting things you could ever read. It was very prescient, warning about the dangers of advancing technology and atomization of society. And in that review, he said, while he was justly imprisoned because he ended up killing innocent people, violence is often justified when there's no other way to get attention for a cause. That's what his view was. So a lot of people, turns out Luigi Mangione is extremely attractive, physically attractive, and that has absolutely shaped the way people are reacting to this story. Human attractiveness, human beauty is a very powerful force. And that unquestionably is generating a lot more sympathy for him, a lot more interest in him, a lot more support for him. There's more and more photos that are being uncovered, and it's absolutely true. There's no denying that he's a very good-looking person, and there's been a history in the United States before of when defendants are young, good-looking. There's a lot of empathy and support for that person, including romantic or sexual attraction. It happened with Ted Bundy, the serial killer. It happened with Charles Manson. And it's definitely happening in this case. And there was already a lot of support before anyone saw pictures of the suspect, who we still don't know is the killer, but that's what the police insist on. And then once he became known, once his pictures became known, once more was known about him, support for him has increased. And so there's a lot of anger around the fact in some circles that people seem supportive of the idea that vigilante justice in pursuit of a cause can be justified. And there's a lot of people who are insisting, as a matter of principle, vigilante justice can never be justified. It's never justified to use violence to murder someone in pursuit of a cause in an extrajudicial way. Here, just as one example, here's the New York Post from December 11th. Ghouls launch legal defense fund for United Healthcare CEO slaying suspect Luigi Mangione. So they're calling people ghouls who created a legal defense fund for him. Here is Jesse Waters, the Fox News host, whose show I'm on quite frequently, who ranted and raved with a lot of anger and rage. This is before, or right when they say they caught the killer at the McDonald's, and here's what he had to say about people he perceives to be cheering for the killer.
And good, he's got it. Now, he's a prep school kid. He's politically connected in Maryland.
He's ready for prison?
I don't think anyone's ready, Brian. Maybe you are, Brian, in a different way. But this guy's not ready. He's way too soft. He's going to get annihilated on the inside, and good. If he's not going to get the death penalty, maybe someone will do him justice behind bars. That's all I have to say about that.
You should stop there.
Right?
No, there's a gigantic irony there. That on the one hand, you're saying that vigilante justice and murdering people extrajudicially can never be justified, and people who support it or cheer it or encourage it are ghouls and monsters. And then on the other hand, in the same segment, turning around and saying, there's a good chance he's going to get raped or murdered in prison, and I hope he does. He deserves it. Obviously, if somebody's murdered in prison by a fellow prisoner, that is the very definition of extrajudicial murder, of vigilante justice. So I've seen this happen quite a bit, where people claim that they're opposed to vigilante justice or people murdering for a cause on the one hand, but then turning around and cheering it when their politics makes them more supportive of it. And it really makes me question whether people actually oppose this sort of violence for a cause, the killing of somebody extrajudicially, who they think deserves to be murdered for their political acts or their acts that harm society, or whether people actually believe in it, anybody, as a principle. Just give you one more example. Here's Michael Moynihan of the Free Press. Here is what he had to say on some Free Press podcast talking about what he says are people on the left cheering for this murder.
This kid was a spoiled rich brat who went to a $40,000 a year private school. His family, wealthy for generations. The guy that he murdered's father was a grain elevator operator, and he went to the University of Ohio, a public school. So we want to put that kind of, this kid is a privileged little rat, and he deserves to rot in hell and rot in prison and then rot in hell. The person who...
All right, so, and I think we have one more. This is... okay, so that's been the discourse, that either he's kind of heroic, or at least he acted in a way that's good for society by not just necessarily killing this one CEO, but kind of signaling to the country that people are so angry about what's being done to them by large faceless corporations, not just the health insurance industry, but large corporations in general, the way they exploit people, don't look at them as humanity, don't care about their lives, are willing to destroy their lives just to add some profit to the bottom line, and that this killing is beneficial because it forced a examination of why so many people have health insurance industry. You have that kind of view on the one side, and then on the other side you have this sanctimonious, on the moral high horse lecture that it is grotesque and immoral in every case to murder somebody for a political cause or to engage in vigilante justice. Here's the aforementioned manifesto that the police claim they found on Luigi Mangione when they arrested him. And it was a pretty short manifesto, all things being considered. These are usually a lot longer. And it was leaked to the journalist who I think is a reliable journalist, Ken Klippenstein. I worked with him at The Intercept. And here's part of what the manifesto said. Quote, a reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy. United Healthcare is the largest company in the U.S. by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, and Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these, and it's indecipherable, it could be these pigs, these cretins, these companies have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. And there's another part that says these vermin had it coming, things of that nature. So at least if you believe that this is the killer and you believe that this is his manifesto, he was acting in an ideological cause out of anger and rage that maybe it didn't even affect him negatively. There was a report today that he had never been a universal health care insurance carrier. He was never insured by universal health care. He does come from a wealthy family. There's reports he had medical problems with his back. Some say that surgery was successful. Others say he suffered a lot from his back. But sometimes people just act in a cause that isn't necessarily directly about them. Some people can actually be angry at injustices towards others, genuinely angry about it. You've had wealthy people before become socialist or even communist, even though doing so requires them to give up their wealth. FDR, for example, was someone from a very wealthy and aristocratic family, and yet was responsible for the New Deal, probably the single largest socialist program in the United States that changed the course of how American capitalism functions. Even though FDR didn't need Social Security or any of the other social net benefits that he ushered in, same with Lyndon Johnson. So the fact that somebody themselves is not directly injured by an injustice or victimized by it doesn't preclude their authentic rage at that injustice. Lots of people become enraged at injustices that don't affect them but affect others. That's just called basic human empathy. But what I really seriously doubt, and I've talked about these sorts of things before, when people claim that they believe in a certain principle, yet in reality seem to only really find it objectionable in this particular case. I remember, for example, we covered on the show, there was an American about 5 months ago, who set himself on fire, engaged in self-immolation, and died as a symbolic act of protest in front of the White House to the Biden support for the Israeli destruction of Gaza. And a lot of people on the left who believe that's a genocide, who believe it's a crime against humanity, said this is a noble act of protest. It's an effective, noble, just cause of protest. And I saw a lot of people on the right saying, and in the media as well, saying it's despicable to praise self-immolation and suicide as a form of political protest. And one of the things we did on that show where we talked about that was we looked at other instances where not Americans engage in self-immolation in protest of U.S. government policy, but where people in China did or people in the Arab world did against governments we dislike, and they were widely venerated as heroic for their act of self-immolation. So it wasn't that these people so angry about the praise for that protester hate self-immolation as a principle like they were claiming. They just hated it in this case because they support the Israeli war in Gaza and this person was against it. I think it's very important to examine whether people who are claiming that they believe in a principle that they apply in all cases are in fact only claiming it for this one particular case. I am quite certain, positive, that people like the New York Post, Michael Moynihan, Jesse Waters, the vast majority of people on the right and in the media, it's not just people on the right. It's Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, most Democrats in Washington, most media outlets in Washington have said, this is despicable. You can't support in any way a cold-blooded murder like this. I have no doubt we can imagine those exact kind of people supporting it, cheering it, if someone went and murdered tomorrow as an assassination Vladimir Putin or Nicolas Maduro or the Iranian Ayatollah, I have no doubt that a lot of people would not be saying vigilante justice is never appropriate. You can't murder people extrajudicially because of a perception that they're engaging in some sort of political harm or harm to the society that can never be justified. I have no doubt that people would be cheering that. Every time somebody on the left dies, a hated figure on the left, and the right celebrates, the left says it's despicable to celebrate someone's death. That's a human being, a father, a son, a grandfather, a whatever, a husband. And then every time somebody on the right dies and the left celebrates, the right turns around and says the same thing. Of course, there are people who we think are doing so much harm to society that it's justified to cheer when they die, and even when someone goes and kills them in the name of stopping the harm that they're doing to society. If after O.J. Simpson's acquittal, someone from Nicole Brown Simpson's family or Ron Goldman's family had gone and killed O.J. Simpson out of rage that he murdered their loved one and then got away with it, would people really be saying, this is outrageous? I am so empathetic and sad for O.J. Simpson and his family. I'm disgusted by the people who say he had it coming, that they understand why people in the victims' families would go and do that. Of course not. There'd be a lot of people saying, I absolutely understand that, including people who are now saying vigilante justice, extrajudicial murder is never justified. You can think of all sorts of examples. There's all these times when some defendant is on trial for pedophilia or molestation of a child, and in court the father or some male relative of the child, out of rage, attacks him and beats him, breaks his nose, and everybody stands up and applauds that, even though that's the definition of vigilante justice, even though that is, by definition, trying to harm somebody outside of the court system, try to kill them for acts that they did that are bad. All the time, people who get killed in prison. If Harvey Weinstein got murdered in prison, or some other notorious criminal got murdered in prison, or as we saw with Jesse Waters, if Luigi Mangione, or who, if he's convicted, ends up going to prison and gets murdered, there are going to be a lot of people cheering that. Not because he had due process and was given the death penalty, but because someone looked at this person and said, I think that person's so evil, has done so much harm to society, that it's justified to engage in violence against them. That's exactly what happened in the case of Luigi Mangione. But there are a lot of people who see health insurance executives as benign and not malignant, and they're reacting to that. Not that nobody deserves this, but that this person in particular didn't deserve it, or the political cause in which it was done is not actually a justifiable one. It's not a principle at all. There was actually a case, and I don't want to go too deeply into it, because some people are trying to compare it to Daniel Neely's chokehold on Daniel Penny's chokehold of Brandon Neely in the New York subway, which he just got acquitted for. But in 1984, there was a case that was a lot more extreme of vigilante justice that divided New York City and generated a lot of support. It was the case a lot of you probably don't remember because of age. I don't remember it either. I just read about it. I'm much too young to have remembered this or have lived through it. It was 1984 in New York City. A person named Bernie Goetz was on the subway, and 4 black teenagers got on the subway. And one of them walked over to him and said, can you give me $5? I want $5. And then one of his other friends came over and said, yeah, give me $5 too. And Bernie Goetz pulled out a gun and shot all 4 of them. And when one of them was laying on the ground, scared and petrified because he had been shot, Bernie Goetz said, oh, you don't look that bad. Let me give you another one, and shot him a second time. And that second bullet went into his spine, caused him to be paralyzed from the waist down for life, and to have severe brain damage. He has the mental capacity of an 8-year-old because of that second shot after the guy was already on the ground. And for a lot of people, Bernie Goetz became a hero, a vigilante hero. Oh, thank God somebody finally gave these thugs on this subway what they deserved. There's all kinds of evidence that Bernie Goetz had made all sorts of racist statements, that he was racist, but he became a hero. He was like an outpouring of, yeah, these people deserve it. Maybe these 4 guys weren't that bad. Maybe they weren't going to murder anyone. They were just panhandling. But in general, this whole group of people, thugs who get on the subway and menace people on the subway, it's time they get scared. It's time they got something back. They got what was coming to them. And then there were a lot of people who said vigilante justice is not justifiable. There was no reason for him to kill anybody. He wasn't being threatened. He wasn't being menaced. He wasn't in danger. And they indicted Bernie Getz, and the jury acquitted him on most of the serious charges. He was convicted on a gun crime and spent about 8 months in prison. And then his worst victim, the victim who suffered the worst injury, the one who was already on the ground shot, he said, "You don't look that bad, let me give you another one," and shot him again, and who ended up paralyzed and with brain damage, sued him and got something like a $40 million judgment. Never recovered any of the money, but nonetheless, the jury found that this shooting was wrongful. And there were huge numbers of people who supported Bernie Getz, not even because, again, this particular person deserved it, just because the cause of saying enough is enough, and as a message to other people who do seriously threaten or even attack people on the subway, it was time for them to finally understand that they have something coming to them too. That sounds to me a lot like the rationale, a lot like, in fact, almost identical to the rationale of those supporting the murder of the CEO, which is this health insurance industry has destroyed so many people's lives. It's killed people by denying coverage. It's put entire families into bankruptcy at their most vulnerable moment, that this industry finally deserves what's coming to them. This CEO may not have been the worst. He might have been. It's not that we're happy that that particular person got shot or dead, so this thing goes. It's that someone needed to finally take this cause that people have been ignoring and bring it attention through violence. Kind of similar to the Ted Kaczynski rationale about why he engaged in violence to force people to pay attention to what he said they were ignoring, that he ended up writing a manifesto about and got it published in the Washington Post and the New York Times by negotiating with them. So I don't think this issue is as clear-cut as it appears to be, or at least in terms of how people are insisting that it is. And I do think a lot of times discourse becomes very reactionary, where people are in fact reacting to their opposition to the political cause or the ideology involved, and they're pretending that they have some universal moral principle, and they get so much up on their high horse that I'm certain you could find in their past and easily imagine hypotheticals in the future where they would be the ones cheering vigilante justice and violence and murder based on the exact rationale that is at play